Hi, everybody. My name is Keith Freeze, and I was just quickly wondering who will be the 15th captain in LA Kings history, and the answer is Drew Doughty. My name is Keith Freeze. Thank you for checking out this video. No, I'm just kidding. So I really was curious as to who could possibly be the 15th captain for the LA Kings in their history. And so I went back and looked at the 14 previous captains and kind of made a couple quick notes just so we can kind of have a more historical context when it comes to looking at this answer to this question. So out of the 14 previous captains, including Anze Kopitar for the LA Kings, 7 of them have been captained for 2 years or less. So again, half of the captains in the LA Kings history were only captained for 2 years or less. That's not including Rob Blake's second tenure as captain, where he kind of, was filling in during a couple periods of time in the early to mid 2000s. So that said, the reason why I said, Drew Doughty, I will bring up Drew Doughty in a more serious context, which is to say that it very well could be Drew Doughty that is the next captain of the LA Kings, even if that meant that he was only captain for 2 or 3 seasons. After Anze Kopitar's contract ends at the end of next season, presumably he's going to retire. He hasn't announced anything. He could very well come back and keep playing. He's still got the juice, man. But the point is that Kopitar, if he retires, Drew Doughty still has 1 year left on his deal. And just because he has 1 year left on his deal doesn't mean he's going to retire either. Drew Doughty could do the same thing that Kopitar did, which is sign a 2-year extension after his current contract ends. So let's say that was the case. Let's say Kopitar retires and Drew Doughty signs a 2-year extension. Well, Drew Doughty could be captain for 3 seasons, and that would be more than okay. I'll go with it. Why not? Drew Doughty has been an alternate captain for the LA Kings for a very long time. It would only make sense that he would be the captain. I think sometimes we get sort of hung up in the narrative right now of captains in the NHL, which is that you have to be with the team for so long if you're going to be the captain. Like, they don't want to just throw a C on your chest and have you be there for 1 season with the C and then move on. There's kind of this, team identity that comes with giving a guy the captain patch. And for that reason, I'll use Radko Gudas as an example because it's the first guy that kind of comes to my mind. But I don't know if Radko Gudas is going to be a captain for the next 5 or 6 seasons after this one, but he very well could be the captain for this season plus 2 more. And I'm not taking anything away from Radko Gudas. I'm saying sometimes a guy like that is what you go to. This is our best option right now. This is the guy that's the identity of our team right now, where we want to be right now, even if that's for 2, 3, 4 years, if it's a short window. So do I think Radko Gudas is going to be the longtime captain of the of the Anaheim Ducks? No, I don't. But I do think for the interim, he's maybe the best guy for the job. And I could kind of say the same thing of Drew Doughty. I think Drew Doughty very well could be one of those guys that's the captain for 3 seasons. And that's appropriate because they're giving time for other guys to kind of build that, build up that catalog within the organization in the meantime. So, as an example, if the Kings thought that they wanted Quinton Byfield to be the next captain of the LA Kings, then it's possible that, Kopitar retires, Drew Doughty becomes captain, and Quinton Byfield becomes alternate captain for like 3 seasons, and then he becomes captain. So you give that time to give leadership to a guy that you maybe want to be captain, and that's probably why Drew Doughty would be the next captain, is because maybe the next guy that the Kings really want to kind of wear that C for a long time maybe just isn't at that point in his career yet. But a couple other guys to make note of. So you've got Phil Deneau, who's been an alternate captain pretty much since the day he got with the team. You got Adrian Kempe, who's been an alternate captain this season and a little bit into last season as well. And now you've got Mikey Anderson wearing an alternate patch. Now, Mikey and Kempe are wearing those alternate patches right now because Doughty is out with his injury. But it's a good sign to show you kind of who the team is leaning on in terms of who they think has that leadership quality. I do think out of all those names I just mentioned, so Dano, Anderson, and Kempe, I think out of all of those, I think the Kings would actually give the C to Mikey Anderson before they would give it to anybody else. My own personal opinion about the captain versus alternate captain patch is this. I think the captain has to be somebody that knows the playbook, or like I'm sorry, not just the playbook, but the rule book, the entire NHL rule book, like by heart. Or if they don't know it by heart, they're good at communicating their opinion to the referee and then hearing the referee and kind of having an honest dialogue. I think that's what being a captain really is meant to be. They're supposed to be the liaison from the team to the ref and from the ref to the team. So if the captain is somebody that's kind of level-headed, can hear out the referees, have, some kind of, good discourse with them, I think that's where the Kings should lean for their future captain. And that's why I could see it being Mikey Anderson. I never see Mikey really lose his cool. And if he does a great job of hiding it. But I think he's just one of those guys that's been around the team for long enough to know, hey, I know this guy, and I know he really wouldn't have gone, tripping that guy just for whatever. Or however, I think Mikey could defend his team in a sense that he could communicate it well to the referee and the referee could hear him out. So that's why I think Mikey would actually probably be a really good captain for the LA Kings in the future. I would maybe equate it to maybe kind of like a Matty Nordstrom type of captaincy where maybe he's not Rob Blake. He's not the guy that's going to have his banner hanging in the ceiling, but he learned from a Rob Blake. He learned from a Drew Doughty, so he can be the captain of a team. I think Mikey and Matty is a good comparison, honestly. For Phil Danault to be the captain, I would say that that's very possible, but at the same time, I think Phil Danault is good in his role at being an alternate in the same way that Adrian is, which is, I was trying to say the difference between a captain and an alternate captain and why they're kind of special in their own right. But for me, an alternate captain is a guy that the team wants to highlight to the fans as this is a guy he does a lot on the stat sheet. He does a lot on the ice, and we want to reward him for that. And he does some extra things in the locker room that makes him that have leadership qualities, but he's maybe not our team leader, but on the ice, he leads by example. So Adrian Kempe, for a guy like Adrian Kempe that skates as fast as he does, scores as well as he does, has been a homegrown talent, I think it makes sense to give a guy like Adrian Kempe the alternate captain patch because he's kind of lived up to that billing of being like, yeah, this is the kind of player that we wanted to draft, and he's now producing as one of our draftees. He's playing the game the right way. He's a highlight reel kind of player. He's got speed. He's got scoring. He's just a fun guy to watch. And so we got to give him an alternate captain patch because that's kind of what we want this team to be. In the same way when they gave Anze Kopitar the alternate captain patch when he was a bit younger in his career, because it was like, this is an upcoming guy. This is a guy that's got some kind of extra something, and let's highlight him. So I think that's kind of what the alternate captain patch is let's shine a light. Let's give a little bit of, attaboy to a guy that does things right on the ice. And I think that that's probably why Phil Danault has the alternate captain patch as well. But I will say that out of that context I was saying about Mikey being able to go up and have a discourse with the refs and have an honest conversation, I think Phil Danault would be great at that. I don't know what it is about Phil, but he just always seems to be the guy that everybody on the team kind of looks at when things go sideways, and they kind of go, hey, what are we doing here? And can you help us dig this out? I mean, he just always seems to have the ability to get people's attention without having to shout and stomp his feet to do it. There's something about Phil Deneau that he is just a natural leader that I think people lean on. And for that reason, I think he very well could be a captain more than I would say Adrian Kempe. I think Adrian Kempe is that kind of like, that highlight reel player that you want to put an A patch on because you want to highlight it. Whereas I think Phil is wearing an alternate captain because there's an Anze Kopitar or a Drew Doughty in the pecking order above him. But I think Phil Deneau very well could be a captain. So I'm not ruling that out either. But I will say from the more, the younger talent that's on the team, Quentin Byfield at a certain point, I think could be a captain for the team. It might be one of those situations where kind of it's an Austin Matthews type thing where you can see how good he is at such a young age. And you can see that he they're going to want to put the C on him at a certain point, but it may just not be just quite yet. It might be, 5 or 6 years from now. Look at Anze Kopitar. He didn't become the captain when he was, 24, 25 and winning Stanley Cups. It took a little while longer for them to move the C off of Dustin Brown because Dustin Brown was that natural leader that they needed. So I'm saying that out of all the candidates so far, I think it probably would be a Drew Doughty as sort of like a 2 or 3 year captaincy if he, extends his contract and stays with the team beyond the current contract he has. If it's not Drew Doughty, if he retires at the end of his deal or something, he walks, I don't know. I don't want him to walk, but I'm just saying I'm exploring any possibility here. But if for whatever reason he doesn't stay with the Kings after the last year of his deal, I could see, maybe a Phil Deneau becoming captain in the short term, and then it could be a Mikey thing or it could be a Quentin thing, whatever the case. But, I will just say this much, that, a lot of times I don't think that teams want to give the captaincy to a guy that wasn't drafted by the team. And if they do, it's got to be a guy that's a heartbeat of the team now. That's why I think Phil Deneau is kind of that one guy that I might give it to that wasn't a homegrown LA King talent, just because he is that kind of that solid LA Kings piece right now. But I think a lot of times teams don't want to give it to a guy that's not homegrown. I don't know why. I get that vibe that's kind of that's what teams like to do. They don't want to give it to, outside players. And if they do, there's got to be some kind of extra attached reason to that. I'll go back to Toronto, but when they gave it to John Tavares, it was because he's from Toronto and he had been a captain with the Islanders. So it was kind of, this marriage that kind of worked. But in saying that, the sort of cautionary tale about kind of the rebuilding process or whatever, and this is just a small part of it. This ultimately doesn't matter at the end of the day. They're going to give it to whoever they give it to. But, at the end of the day, I'm not saying Gabe Vilardi could have been a captain, but I'm just saying, let's just say hypothetically that Gabe Vilardi was one of those guys that they thought could be. Well, like now he's gone. So now let's look at the people that they brought in their place. It's like, okay, well, Faber's gone, homegrown talent. We brought in Fiala. Can Fiala be a captain on this team? I don't personally think so. I think Fiala would kind of be like an Adrian Kempe where you might give him an alternate captain patch just because he is that kind of highlight reel guy. But to be the team captain, I would say no. And so looking at all these different other guys too, like Vladislav Gavrikov, I think Gavrikov has been, really good on the ice, hasn't let the game get away from him, has been solid and consistent. When he did the whole dancing thing, which by the way, like, I not to change topics too bad here, but like, why didn't everybody do the dance? Everybody on the team, like there were some times where people in the locker room like didn't do the dance at all. Come on, do the dance. I'll do that. It was fun. Let's have fun. Anyway, but for a guy like Gavi, who's really stepped up and done so much during his short time with the LA Kings, I don't think he's done anything too out of place, or he hasn't gone out for his own interest. He plays a really sound game. That's a guy that could be wearing a patch that probably never will. So, I'm giving the balance between a Kevin Fiala and a Vladislav Gavrikov and anybody else you can think of. Joel Edmondson, sound leader, won a Stanley Cup with the St. Louis Blues. I don't think he ever wears a patch as a King. Warren Fogle, I don't think ever wears one. So, you go down the list of guys, and I can't see everybody even wearing an alternate patch, whereas we're talking about the captaincy. That shows you just how important of a decision it kind of ultimately is. So if you want me to make my judgment, I would say that it's probably Drew Doughty in a short window, which I guess I could have ended this video within the first 10 seconds. But I will say Drew Doughty, at least for the short term, and then for the long term, maybe Mikey Anderson or Quentin Byfield. That would be my projection, but I think I'd probably go with Mikey more than I might Quentin. I think Quentin's probably going to be an alternate captain in the same way that Anže was the alternate captain to Dustin Brown. I think it's kind of going to be like that 1 and 1A versus this is the captain, this is an alternate. I think it really is going to kind of be a two-man tandem in the same way right now that it is with Kopitar and Drew Doughty. I don't think Drew Doughty is not the captain just because he's an alternate. I think he kind of is in a weird way. Kopitar is the captain of the forwards. Drew Doughty is the captain of the defense. That's how I kind of read it. So it could be a relationship like that. Maybe Mikey is the guy that wears the C and he's leading the defensive part of the locker room, and Quentin's wearing an A, but he's the leader of the forwards. So you never know. But time will tell. We'll figure it out. Let me know down in the comment section or on X, whatever, who you think is going to be the next captain. Give me some reasons. I'd love to hear them. Fan feedback is always appreciated and always encouraged. Either way, thank you for checking out this video. My name is Keith Freeze. Have a great one, everybody, and go Kings go.